10. Broke NBA players that now work a normal job. They had fame, fortune, and millions in the bank, yet somehow they lost it all. From NBA All-Stars to everyday workers, these once unstoppable legends went from luxury cars and private jets to coffee counters, classrooms, and cattle farms. It's hard to believe that the same men who ruled the court now punch a clock like the rest of us. How does that happen, and what can we learn from it? Stay tuned, because you're about to witness 10 unbelievable transformations that prove money can vanish, but character never dies. Subscribe now to Legends of Black Excellence, and let's dive in. Vin Baker. Once celebrated under the bright lights of the NBA, Vin Baker's journey remains one of the most powerful stories of rise, collapse, and redemption in modern sports. Standing at 6'11", Baker was a dominant force, a four-time NBA All-Star who earned more than $100 million during his career with teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, Seattle Supersonics, and Boston Celtics. He was admired for his rare versatility, capable of handling the ball, shooting from range, and controlling the paint skills that made him one of the most complete power forwards of the 1990s. But behind the fame and fortune was a man silently fighting his demons. The immense pressure to perform and the isolation of fame led Baker into a spiral of alcohol addiction and reckless spending that would eventually cost him nearly everything he had. At the height of his stardom, Baker's life mirrored his success on the court: luxury cars, designer clothes, and endless parties. Yet when the final buzzer of his career sounded, the reality hit hard. His wealth evaporated through poor investments and personal struggles, and his name, that once shone on marquees, faded into financial ruin. He later admitted that he had sometimes played while intoxicated, a haunting confession that revealed the depth of his inner turmoil. The man who once stood at the center of roaring arenas now faced a deafening silence, left to rebuild from the ashes of his former life. Redemption, however, came from the most unexpected place behind the counter at Starbucks. Through his connection with former Seattle Supersonics owner and Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, Baker was offered a job as a barista in Rhode Island. For many, the idea of an NBA star serving coffee was unthinkable, but for Baker, it was a second chance. It wasn't about the paycheck, he explained. It was about regaining my character. His humility and work ethic impressed both customers and co-workers, eventually leading him to become a store manager, a role that marked his quiet but powerful comeback. And here's a question worth asking. If you lost every dollar and every ounce of fame tomorrow, would you have the courage to start over like Vin Baker did? His story challenges our idea of success. Is greatness measured by wealth, or by the strength to stand again after losing it all? For Baker, the answer was found in the daily grind, not of the court, but of the coffee beans he served with pride. After years of discipline and reflection, Baker has remained sober for over 13 years, written an inspiring memoir titled God and Starbucks, and now uses his experience to guide others. As a basketball director at Camp Greylock and a Fox Sports analyst, he mentors young athletes on financial wisdom, personal accountability, and spiritual growth. Vin Baker's journey from NBA millionaire to Starbucks employee to renewed leader is more than a comeback. It's a masterclass in humility and resilience. Once defined by his physical power, he's now remembered for something deeper: the will to rebuild his life one cup and one choice at a time. Adrian Dantley. Once hailed as one of the most efficient scorers in NBA history, Adrian Dantley's story stands as a rare portrait of humility in a world obsessed with fame and fortune. A six-time All-Star Hall of Famer and one of the most unstoppable offensive players of the 1980s, Dantley amassed over 23,000 career points and earned between $10 to $15 million throughout his 15 seasons in the league. Known for his flawless footwork and ability to draw fouls with ease, he was the kind of player who could turn every possession into points. Yet when the cheers stopped and the jerseys were hung for good, Dantley made a choice that stunned fans around the world. He decided to live like an ordinary man. While many of his contemporaries pursued coaching, broadcasting, or business ventures, Dantley took a different route, one that reflected his grounded personality and quiet strength. He became a school crossing guard in Montgomery County, Maryland, earning less than $15,000 a year. For a Hall of Famer who once signed million-dollar contracts and shared the court with legends, this humble role raised eyebrows. But for Dantley, it was never about ego. "It's not beneath me," he once said calmly. "I'm a regular guy. I just played basketball." Those words, simple yet profound, carried the weight of a man who understood that dignity comes not from wealth, but from purpose. Every morning, Dantley puts on his reflective vest, steps into the crosswalk, and ensures that school children cross safely, a job he treats with the same discipline that once made him a star. The same focus that helped him outmaneuver defenders on the court now helps him guard something far more precious, the safety of his community's children. When asked why he chose such a modest job, he explained that it allowed him to stay active, contribute to his neighborhood, and set an example of honest work. So let's ask ourselves, would you be willing to trade luxury for meaning, fame for a simple life of service? Dantley's story dares us to reconsider what success truly means. While others chase validation, he has found peace in routine and purpose in simplicity. His decision reminds us that not every victory is scored on a scoreboard. Some are found in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Far from a tale of failure, Dantley's journey is one of balance. Though he no longer earns millions, he has something many never find: contentment. He once said that helping children and protecting lives gave him more fulfillment than any basket he ever scored. Few of the kids who wave to him each morning realize they're being guided by a Hall of Famer, but perhaps that's exactly how he wants it. Adrian Dantley's transformation from NBA icon to everyday hero proves that humility can outlast fame. In a world where so many athletes lose themselves after the spotlight fades, he stands tall, not under the arena lights, but under the morning sun, reminding us that true greatness is not about glory, but about grace. Derrick Coleman. Once feared in the paint and praised for his rare blend of size and skill, Derrick Coleman was the very definition of basketball potential fulfilled and later squandered. Standing 6'10" and built like a tank, Coleman dominated as the first overall pick in the 1990 NBA draft, becoming the 1991 Rookie of the Year and an All-Star in 1994. Over a 15-year career, he earned more than $91 million playing for teams like the New Jersey Nets, Philadelphia 76ers, and Detroit Pistons. Coleman had an all-power touch and a left-handed finesse that made him nearly unstoppable. But like so many athletes who rose too fast, the fortune he built eventually vanished, lost to lavish spending, poor financial decisions, and an indulgent lifestyle that couldn't be sustained once the game was gone. At the height of his fame, Coleman lived large, multiple homes, luxury cars, extravagant parties, and an entourage that mirrored a movie star's. Yet after years of unchecked expenses and risky investments, reality hit hard. By 2010, the same man who once signed 8-figure contracts filed for bankruptcy. He had joined the long list of NBA millionaires whose wealth dissolved after retirement. But what makes Coleman's story remarkable isn't his fall, it's what he chose to do afterward. Rather than hiding from the public eye or chasing lost fame, he turned toward a cause that truly mattered, helping the people of Flint, Michigan during one of America's worst water crises. Coleman's new life couldn't be more different from the luxury of his past. He became a clean water and equality activist, driving through neighborhoods in his own truck, hand-delivering bottled water to families whose faucets ran brown and toxic. It's a picture few could have imagined: a former NBA star, sleeves rolled up, serving his community one case of water at a time. But for Coleman, this wasn't about image. It was about responsibility. "I made my mistakes," he admitted, "but I've also been blessed. Now I've got to give something back." And here's a question to think about. Would you trade your comfort to stand with a community in crisis, even if it meant starting over from nothing? Coleman's answer was a resounding yes. His daily mission in Flint reflects not a man seeking redemption for headlines, but someone who's found a higher purpose in service. He partners with local organizations and other former athletes, ensuring that his efforts go beyond charity. They build consistency and hope. In addition to his activism, Coleman also earned a college degree after retirement, symbolizing his commitment to growth and education. It's a quiet victory that speaks volumes. Even when the millions are gone, knowledge and integrity remain priceless. His transformation from NBA celebrity to hands-on community leader showcases a rare kind of maturity, one forged not in success, but in reflection. Derrick Coleman's story is not just about losing money, it's about regaining meaning. Once a man defined by power and talent, he is now defined by compassion and purpose. In the streets of Flint, he's not introduced as the former NBA star. He's known simply as Derrick, the guy who brings us water. And perhaps that title is worth more than any trophy he ever won. Kenny Anderson. Once a prodigy from Queens, New York, Kenny Anderson was destined for greatness before he even stepped onto an NBA court. By high school, his name was already legendary, a basketball phenom ranked as the #1 player in the nation. His lightning-quick handles and vision made him a household name, and after one spectacular season at Georgia Tech, he entered the 1991 NBA Draft as the second overall pick. Over a 14-year career, Anderson played for several teams including the New Jersey Nets, Boston Celtics, and Portland Trail Blazers, earning an estimated $63 million. Yet for all his talent and success, his life after basketball tells a different story. One of excess regret and a long road to rediscovery. During his prime, Anderson lived fast and spent freely. Luxury cars, mansions, jewelry, and endless travel defined his lifestyle. But behind the fame was chaos: 7 children with 5 different women, multiple DUI arrests, and a string of bad financial decisions. The fortune that once seemed limitless evaporated piece by piece until the former All-Star filed for bankruptcy in 2006, only months after retirement. The man who had dazzled millions with his court vision had lost sight of his own financial stability. Like many athletes, his wealth couldn't withstand the weight of unchecked spending and complicated personal obligations. At his lowest point, Anderson faced a crucial question: who was he without basketball? When the roar of the crowd fades and the paychecks stop, most players struggle to find purpose. Anderson, however, decided to return to the one thing he knew best: the game itself. Instead of chasing fame, he turned to coaching. He accepted a position as the head basketball coach at Fisk University, a small, historically black college in Nashville, Tennessee. The paycheck was modest compared to his NBA millions, but for Anderson, the reward came from shaping young lives rather than signing big contracts. And let's pause for a moment. If you lost everything you once worked for, would you have the courage to start again from the bottom? Anderson's decision to rebuild his life through mentorship wasn't about nostalgia, it was about responsibility. He knew that his story, both the triumphs and the mistakes, could teach a new generation of players how to value not just money, but discipline and self-awareness. His transition to coaching also gave him something the NBA couldn't piece. No longer surrounded by fame or temptation, Anderson found purpose in the simplicity of guiding college athletes, young men who reminded him of himself before the fame. He also focused on personal growth, speaking publicly about mental health, financial literacy, and fatherhood, determined to prevent others from repeating his mistakes. Kenny Anderson's life has come full circle, from a teenage sensation with the world at his feet to a man humbled by loss, grounded by experience, and renewed by service. Though he no longer drives luxury cars or earns millions, his story resonates far beyond the scoreboard. In the end, his greatest comeback didn't happen on the court. It happened in his heart, where he learned that success isn't about how high you climb, but how you rise after you fall. Greg Oden. Once hailed as the next great big man, Greg Oden's story is one of promise, pain, and perseverance, a modern basketball tragedy that turned into a lesson in humility. Standing 7 feet tall with unmatched athleticism, Oden was the first overall pick in the 2007 NBA draft, chosen ahead of Kevin Durant by the Portland Trail Blazers. Scouts called him a once-in-a-generation talent, a player destined to dominate the league for years to come. But fate had other plans. Repeated knee injuries would rob him of the very gift that made him special, limiting him to just 105 games across 6 seasons and cutting short what could have been a Hall of Fame career. Over time, the young man who was supposed to carry a franchise instead became a symbol of what could have been. Oden's short NBA tenure earned him around $24 million, a number that might seem large, but vanished quickly after medical costs, depression, and poor financial choices took their toll. The sudden loss of identity hit him hard. He wasn't just losing money, he was losing himself. At one point, Oden admitted that he fell into alcohol abuse and isolation, struggling to accept that his career had ended before it truly began. "Basketball was who I was," he once said. "When that was gone, I didn't know who Greg Oden was anymore." His physical pain was matched by emotional anguish, the kind that no surgery could ever fix. Rather than disappear, however, Oden decided to rebuild not as a player, but as a student and mentor. He returned to Ohio State University, where he had once led his team to the 2007 NCAA championship game to finish his degree in sports industry. While there, he humbly worked as a student manager for the basketball team, fetching water bottles, assisting with drills, and learning the game from a new perspective. It was a role worlds away from being the one draft pick. Yet it became the foundation of his comeback, teaching him discipline, patience, and gratitude. Now let's reflect for a moment. If everything you built your life around disappeared overnight, could you still find the strength to start over? Greg Oden did. He took his experiences, both painful and instructive, and turned them into purpose. Instead of chasing fame, he embraced education, humility, and mentorship, realizing that his story could help others facing similar struggles. After earning his degree, Oden began working with EduCore Sports and Entertainment, helping young athletes navigate finances and life after sports. He also returned to basketball not as a star, but as a mentor and advisor, using his hard-earned wisdom to teach that success isn't defined by how long you shine, but by what you do when the lights go out. Greg Oden's transformation from a fallen superstar to a grounded educator stands as a reminder that life doesn't always follow the script we imagine. He may never have reached the basketball greatness once predicted for him, but in a deeper sense, he achieved something far more valuable: self-awareness, purpose, and peace. His journey proves that even when the body gives out, the spirit can still rise, and sometimes that's the most powerful comeback of all. Bryant Reeves. Known affectionately as Big Country, Bryant Reeves was once the heart and soul of the Vancouver Grizzlies, a small-town giant who carried the hopes of a brand-new franchise on his broad shoulders. Standing 7 feet tall and weighing nearly 300 pounds, Reeves was a force in the paint during the mid to late 1990s. Drafted 6th overall in 1995 as the Grizzlies' first-ever franchise pick, he quickly became their cornerstone player, averaging up to 16 points and 8 rebounds per game at his peak. Over 6 seasons, he earned an estimated $55 million, a massive sum for his era. But like many players before him, Reeves's dream run came to an abrupt end, not because of scandal or bad spending, but because his body simply gave out before his time. Reeves's career was derailed by relentless back injuries that forced him into early retirement at just 27 years old. The man who had once towered over opponents could barely move without pain. Unlike many stars who chased the limelight even after leaving the game, Reeves quietly disappeared. He didn't go broke in the traditional sense. He had been relatively cautious with his money, but his sudden loss of purpose left him adrift. While others clung to fame, Reeves sought peace in something far removed from basketball, the land. Returning to his roots in Gans, Oklahoma, the same rural town where his journey began, Reeves bought a 300-acre cattle ranch. There he traded basketball courts for pastures, sneakers for boots, and media appearances for mornings spent feeding livestock. His new life is simple. No crowds, no endorsements, no cameras, just the quiet rhythm of the countryside. For a man once defined by competition, the ranch became his sanctuary, a place where he could finally breathe freely again. And it makes you wonder if you lost the career that defined you. Would you have the courage to start over in silence? Bryant Reeves did. Instead of mourning what he lost, he chose to build a new life on his own terms, one not measured by fame or money, but by peace and self-sufficiency. The ranch, with its open fields and quiet sunsets, became both his refuge and redemption. Even now, those who visit Reeves's property find a basketball court tucked behind the farmhouse, a small, worn-out slab of concrete surrounded by fences. It's a quiet reminder of his past life, proof that while he's moved on, he hasn't forgotten where he came from. He sometimes hosts local kids there, teaching them to shoot hoops and sharing stories from his NBA days lessons, not about winning championships, but about resilience and staying grounded. Bryant Big Country Reeves represents a different kind of success, one rooted not in fame, but in fulfillment. He didn't end up in financial ruin or tabloid headlines. Instead, he built a life of stability far away from the chaos of professional sports. His story may not be glamorous, but it's deeply human, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory isn't on the scoreboard, but in finding peace after the final whistle. Mark Blount. Once a reliable big man in the NBA, Mark Blount never reached superstar status, but his story after basketball is one of quiet intelligence and business triumph. Standing 7 feet tall, Blount played 9 seasons in the NBA for teams like the Boston Celtics, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Miami Heat, earning an estimated $20 to $30 million over his career. Though he never made an all-star team, he was a solid contributor, averaging double digits in points during his best seasons with Boston. When his time in the league ended, however, Blount faced the same challenge that so many retired athletes encounter: how to create a meaningful, sustainable life after the applause stopped. Unlike many of his peers who squandered fortunes, Blount approached retirement with a rare sense of practicality. He understood that fame fades and paychecks stop, but smart investments can last forever. After stepping away from the court, he poured his energy and savings into entrepreneurship. His first major venture, food franchising. In a move that surprised fans, Blount purchased 2 Auntie Anne's pretzel shops in Florida, investing about $700,000 of his own money. The learning curve was steep, but Blount treated business the same way he treated basketball, with discipline, patience, and daily hustle. Within a few years, he sold the stores for an impressive $2 million profit, turning a risky bet into a life-changing success. That success sparked a passion. Blount soon transitioned into real estate, using his profits to buy, sell, and develop properties. Instead of chasing endorsement deals or commentary gigs, he built a foundation of long-term financial stability. He described business ownership as his second career, one that gave him the same satisfaction as basketball once did, only this time he called the plays. His story stands out in a league where nearly 60% of former players face financial distress within 5 years of retirement. Blount proved that with foresight and effort, a player can build wealth that endures long after the buzzer. And here's a question worth asking. If your fame ended tomorrow, would you be ready to build something new without the spotlight? Mark Blount was. He traded arenas for office spaces, sneakers for spreadsheets, and the roar of the crowd for the quiet grind of entrepreneurship. In a world that often equates success with visibility, he found strength in independence and self-reliance. Blount's success also speaks to adaptability, a skill many athletes underestimate. He went from catching lobs on the court to negotiating leases and managing staff, showing that the same discipline that fuels an athlete can power a business. While others clung to nostalgia, Blount embraced reinvention. He once said that owning a business taught him more about teamwork and responsibility than any season he'd played. Mark Blount's story isn't one of loss, but of evolution. From NBA journeyman to thriving entrepreneur, he transformed his career earnings into a foundation for lifelong security. He didn't need fame to define his worth, he built it with his own hands. In a league filled with cautionary tales, Blount's journey proves that sometimes the smartest play happens long after the game ends. Dan Dickau. Once a promising point guard with silky handles and a sharp shooting touch, Dan Dickau carved out a respectable 6-year NBA career before quietly stepping away from the game. Drafted in the first round of the 2002 NBA Draft, he played for several teams, including the Atlanta Hawks, Portland Trail Blazers, and New Orleans Hornets, earning between $5 and $10 million during his time in the league. Though never a superstar, Dickau was admired for his work ethic, basketball IQ, and leadership qualities that would later define his life off the court. But when his NBA journey ended, he faced the same question that haunts many professional athletes. What comes next when the spotlight fades? For Dickau, the answer didn't come through fame or fortune, but through reinvention. After hanging up his jersey, he returned to Spokane, Washington, where he had once been a legend at Gonzaga University, the school that launched him to national prominence. Instead of chasing television deals or high-profile coaching gigs, he chose to build a life grounded in family, community, and consistency. He transitioned into a completely new career path: real estate. Using the networking skills and discipline honed in professional basketball, Dickau found success helping people buy and sell homes, a far cry from his days orchestrating fast breaks in packed arenas. Unlike many former athletes who struggled to adapt, Dickau approached his new chapter with humility and strategy. Real estate may not offer the thrill of a game-winning shot, but it gave him a sense of control, a business where effort equals results. Leveraging his deep ties to the Gonzaga community and his reputation for integrity, he quickly built a client base that trusted him not for who he was on ESPN, but for who he became after the fame. The key, he once said, is to take the same drive that made you successful in sports and apply it to something new. So here's a question for you. If your biggest dream ended tomorrow, would you have the courage to start from scratch? In a completely different field, Dan Dickau did. His journey reminds us that adaptability, not talent, is what ensures survival once the cheering stops. Beyond real estate, Dickau has also stayed close to the game in a different way. He works as a college basketball analyst and mentors young athletes, emphasizing financial literacy and career planning lessons he learned from experience. His ability to balance multiple roles, businessman, broadcaster, mentor, and family man, shows that success doesn't have to look like it once did. Dan Dickau's story is far from tragic. It's a blueprint for reinvention. From NBA arenas to open houses, he has proven that life after sports can be just as fulfilling as life within it. By using his connections wisely and staying grounded in his values, he turned a fleeting career into lasting stability. In the end, Dickau's legacy isn't just about what he did with a basketball, it's about how he built a new future with both feet firmly on the ground. Michael "Sugar Ray" Richardson. Once nicknamed Sugar Ray for his smooth style and charisma on the court, Michael Richardson was one of the NBA's brightest stars of the late 1970s and early 80s until addiction brought his career crashing down. Drafted 4th overall by the New York Knicks in 1978, Richardson quickly became a fan favorite. A 6'5" guard known for his defense, passing, and flair, he earned 4 NBA All-Star selections and led the league 3 times in steals. He was compared to Magic Johnson for his all-around brilliance and was set to be one of the greats. But fame, pressure, and drugs proved a deadly combination. By 1986, after multiple violations of the league's drug policy, Richardson became the first player in NBA history to receive a lifetime ban for substance abuse. At the height of his career, Richardson had earned around $5 to $10 million, a small fortune for the time. Yet it disappeared quickly, spent on fast-living bad habits and failed attempts at recovery. He admitted to battling cocaine addiction, a disease that not only cost him his career, but also his family and reputation. When the NBA door closed, most thought his story was over. But life had a second act waiting for him, one that would redefine his legacy. Unable to play in the U.S., Richardson moved overseas where he spent 14 years playing in Europe, suiting up for teams in Italy, France, and other countries. Far from the NBA spotlight, he rebuilt his career and found peace through structure and distance from temptation. Though he was no longer making millions, he earned enough to live and to reflect. Those years abroad were more than a continuation of his basketball life. They were rehabilitation through purpose. When his playing days finally ended, Richardson returned to the United States not as a fallen star, but as a changed man. He chose a quiet life in Oklahoma, where he now works as a substitute teacher and runs a youth basketball camp for underprivileged kids. It's a humbling but powerful transformation from an NBA All-Star who once filled Madison Square Garden to a teacher guiding students in small classrooms. He doesn't chase fame anymore. Instead, he chases meaning. "I made mistakes," he said, "but if my story can keep one kid from doing the same, it's worth it." Let's pause for a moment. If you were given a second chance after losing everything, would you take it or let shame define you? Richardson took his. He didn't return to glory on the court, but he found something more lasting: redemption. His work with children, especially those growing up in rough neighborhoods, focuses not only on basketball, but on life choices, responsibility, education, and self-respect. Michael Sugar Ray Richardson's journey is both heartbreaking and inspiring. From all-star to exile, from addiction to educator, his story proves that even the hardest fall can lead to the deepest wisdom. He may never again feel the roar of the Madison Square Garden crowd, but in the laughter of the students he teaches, he's found a sound that's even sweeter: the quiet victory of a man who refused to let his past define his future. Scottie Pippen. Few names in basketball carry the weight of Scottie Pippen, the legendary forward who stood shoulder to shoulder with Michael Jordan to build the Chicago Bulls dynasty of the 1990s. A six-time NBA champion, seven-time All-Star, and Hall of Famer, Pippen earned more than $109 million over his 17-year career, not including endorsements and global fame that made him one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet. He was the perfect teammate, selfless, defensive-minded, and brilliant under pressure. Yet behind the highlight reels and championship banners, Pippen's life after basketball took a quieter and humbler turn, revealing that even legends are not immune to financial misfortune and personal struggle. Despite his career success, Pippen's post-retirement years were marked by a series of bad investments and a costly divorce that significantly affected his wealth. Reports surfaced that he had lost millions in failed ventures, including a $4 million private jet purchase that never flew. Though rumors exaggerated his financial woes, the truth was clear: much of his fortune had dwindled. Unlike many retired stars who turned to broadcasting or brand deals, Pippen sought stability in a completely different way, by returning to his roots both literally and figuratively. Back in his home state of Arkansas, Pippen co-owns a livestock and crop farm with his brother. There, the once global icon spends his days tending to the land, overseeing operations, and embracing a slower pace of life. It's a striking contrast. The man who once played under the brightest lights now works beneath the open sky. But for Pippen, it's not defeat, it's renewal. "This is real work," he once said. "It's honest, it's grounding, and it keeps me humble." His move to farming isn't just about money. It's about rediscovering a sense of peace and purpose that the spotlight never gave him. And that leads to a question worth asking. If all the fame and fortune you worked for vanished, could you find fulfillment in simplicity? Pippen's answer is yes. While others cling to their past glory, he found strength in starting over, proving that greatness isn't just about trophies, but about character. The farm became more than a business. It became a metaphor for his life, planting, nurturing, rebuilding, and harvesting the rewards of patience and perseverance. Though Pippen still appears occasionally as a TV analyst and public speaker, he no longer seeks the limelight that once defined him. Instead, he uses his platform to talk about financial responsibility, mental resilience, and the importance of family. His shift from global celebrity to small-town businessman reflects a man who has evolved beyond basketball. someone who has learned that peace is more valuable than prestige. Scottie Pippen's transformation from NBA legend to farmer is not a fall from grace, it's a return to authenticity. Once praised for his partnership with Michael Jordan, Pippen now stands alone, not in competition, but in contentment. His story reminds us that even when the crowd stops cheering, life still offers second chances, and that true greatness isn't found in how loudly the world applauds, but in how quietly you rebuild when it doesn't. From million-dollar contracts to humble new beginnings, these former NBA stars prove that success isn't just about fame or fortune. It's about resilience, redemption, and reinvention. Vin Baker found purpose brewing coffee. Derek Coleman found meaning in service, and Scottie Pippen found peace in the fields of Arkansas. Each man's story challenges what we think it means to make it. Is greatness defined by wealth or by the courage to start again when it's gone? Tell us what you believe in the comments below. Right here on Legends of Black Excellence, where true stories inspire powerful conversations.